Hey everyone, welcome back. Make sure you smash that subscribe button because Rachel's story is going to show you something powerful about healing and who gets to do the healing. Let me take you to Boston, Massachusetts, where this all started. Rachel was an ER nurse at Mass General. 29 years old, 5 years into her career, and she was really good at her job. The kind of good where residents would specifically ask for her on their shifts. Where patients would request her. Where her skills could literally mean the difference between life and death. She thrived under pressure. Loved the chaos of the ER, the puzzle of triage, the rush of saving someone who came encircling the drain. It was intense and demanding and exactly what she wanted to do with her life. Then COVID hit. And if you weren't healthcare during the pandemic, you can't really understand what that was like. The exhaustion, the fear, the impossible decisions, watching people die alone because their families couldn't be there. Holding phones so patients could say goodbye to loved ones through a screen. Going home every night terrified you were bringing the virus back to your own family. The PTSD was real and immediate and completely normalized because everyone was going through it. Rachel made it through 2020 okay. Barely, but okay. Made it through 2021 mostly intact. But by early 2022, the cracks were showing. She'd started having panic attacks before shifts. Would sit in her car in the hospital parking lot, heart racing, unable to breathe, unable to make herself go inside. She'd push through it, nurses always push through, but it was getting worse. The nightmares were constant. The hypervigilance was exhausting. The emotional numbness was scary. She knew what PTSD looked like. She'd seen it in patients. Now she was seeing it in her mirror. Her therapist told her she needed a break. Take FMLA, step away, recover. But Rachel couldn't. They were still short-staffed. Her unit still needed her. Patients still needed her. She couldn't abandon her colleagues, couldn't let down her patients. So she kept showing up, kept pushing through, kept pretending she was fine even as she crumbled from the inside out. March 2022. Rachel had a shift that broke her. Won't go into details, patient privacy, plus it's too dark, but it was bad. The kind of bad that makes you question everything. She got through the shift on autopilot, charted everything correctly, handed off to the next shift like it was just another day. Then she went home, walked into her apartment, and completely collapsed. Just fell apart. Couldn't stop crying. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Cold and sick for the next 3 shifts, first time she'd ever done that. Just laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how she was supposed to keep doing this. Day 4 of this, her downstairs neighbor knocked on her door. Mrs. Chen, 70-something, lived alone, barely spoke English. Rachel had helped her a few times with things, setting up her phone, explaining bills, that kind of stuff. Mrs. Chen was holding this cat carrier. You take, she said. Is good for you. Take. Inside the carrier was this beautiful Siamese cat. Blue eyes, cream and brown coloring, elegant and aloof looking. Rachel tried to explain she couldn't take a cat, she was barely functioning, she worked crazy hours, it wasn't a good idea. But Mrs. Chen was insistent. My daughter say I too old for cat. Say cat goes to shelter. You take. Is good for you. And she just left the carrier in Rachel's apartment and shuffled away before Rachel could argue further. Rachel stood there, staring at this cat in a carrier in her living room, feeling completely overwhelmed. She didn't even like cats particularly. Had never had pets growing up. Didn't have time or energy for this. But the cat was here, and she couldn't just, what? Leave it in the carrier? So she opened it. The cat stepped out, looked around like she was inspecting a hotel room, then jumped onto Rachel's couch and settled in like she'd always lived there. Rachel named her Meyer. No real reason, she just looked like a Meyer. That first week was weird. Rachel was still in crisis mode, barely functioning, and now she had this cat demanding food and attention. Meyer would sit on Rachel's chest when she was lying in bed. Would headbutt her hand when Rachel would zone out staring at nothing. Would meow loudly if Rachel went too long without eating. It was annoying. It was also exactly what Rachel needed, something that wouldn't let her disappear completely into her trauma. Here's what Rachel told me about that time: Meyer didn't fix me. But she wouldn't let me sink. Every time I started spiraling, started drowning in the flashbacks and the guilt and the exhaustion, Meyer would be there. Demanding food or wanting play or just sitting on me and purring. And I'd have to surface. I'd have to be present. Because this cat needed me. And somehow, being needed in that simple, concrete way, feed me, pet me, clean my litter box, that was manageable. That was something I could do when saving lives felt impossible. Meyer had this thing she'd do. Every time Rachel would have a panic attack, and she had them a lot those first few months, Meyer would come sit facing her, close enough that Rachel could feel her breath, and just stare. Not blinking, just intense eye contact. And Rachel would focus on Meyer's eyes, on her breathing, on the realness of her presence. And slowly, the panic would recede. It was better than any grounding technique her therapist had taught her. Because it was real. It was connection. It was being seen by another living thing who chose to be there. Rachel started building a routine around Meyer. Had to get up to feed her, couldn't just stay in bed all day. Had to clean the apartment, Meyer deserved a clean space. Had to stay present, Meyer would literally meow at her until she engaged. And in building that routine for Meyer, Rachel built a routine for herself. Started eating regularly again. Started sleeping on a schedule. Started existing in the world instead of just surviving in her head. 3 months after getting Meyer, Rachel called her manager. Said she needed to step back. Not quit, but reduce her hours. Switch to part-time for a while. She'd been terrified to have that conversation, certain they'd see her as weak or unreliable. But her manager was incredible. We've been worried about you. Take whatever time you need. 3 months after getting Meyer, Rachel called her manager. Said she needed to step back. Not quit, but reduce her hours. Switch to part-time for a while. She'd been terrified to have that conversation, certain they'd see her as weak or unreliable. But her manager was incredible. We've been worried about you. Take whatever time you need. Your job will be here when you're ready. That permission to prioritize her own healing, it was transformative. Rachel went down to 3 shifts a week. Used the extra time to actually deal with her trauma. Therapy twice a week. Started running again, something she'd loved before nursing consumed her life. Spent time with friends she'd been neglecting for years. And spent time with Meyer. Just sitting together. Playing with string toys. Watching Meyer attack the red dot from a laser pointer with absolute conviction. Normal, mundane, healing things. The interesting thing about PTSD is that healing isn't linear. Rachel would have good weeks followed by terrible days. She'd think she was making progress, then something would trigger her and she'd be right back in it. But Meyer was consistent through all of it. Good days, bad days, didn't matter. Meyer was there. Same routine, same presence, same unwavering demand that Rachel continue existing and engaging with the world. About 6 months into this healing process, Rachel noticed something. She was laughing again. Like, really laughing, the kind that makes your stomach hurt. Maya had tried to jump onto the counter, miscalculated, and sort of scrambled and slid across the surface, knocking over a plant in the process, then looked offended that physics had betrayed her. And Rachel laughed until she cried. And it felt so good. So normal. She couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed like that. She started noticing other things too. Food tasted good again. Music sounded better. The sunset looked beautiful instead of just existing. Those small joys that trauma had muted, they were coming back. Not all at once, not perfectly, but they were there. She was still dealing with PTSD, still in therapy, still having hard days. But she was also having good moments. And those moments were getting longer and more frequent. A year after getting Maya, Rachel felt ready to go back to full-time. But not in the ER. She'd loved that work once, but it had nearly destroyed her, and she needed to admit that maybe it wasn't sustainable for her anymore. She transferred to a clinic setting. Less chaos, less trauma, more routine. Some of her ER colleagues didn't understand. Saw it as a step down. But Rachel knew better. It was a step toward sustainability. Toward a career she could maintain without sacrificing her mental health. Here's what's wild, Rachel is a better nurse now than she was before. Not despite the trauma and the breakdown and the healing process, but because of it. She understands patient suffering in a way she didn't before. She's more patient, more compassionate, more willing to sit with people in their pain instead of trying to immediately fix it. She's become an advocate for healthcare worker mental health in her hospital. Talks openly about her experience with PTSD. Helps other nurses recognize the signs and get help before they hit crisis. And she credits Maya with all of it. Maya didn't cure my PTSD, Rachel told me. Nothing cures PTSD, you just learn to live with it, to manage it, to make peace with it. But Maya gave me a reason to do that work. She gave me something to come home to that wasn't just my trauma. She gave me moments of joy and connection that reminded me life was still worth living. She was my anchor when I was drowning. There's science behind this, and it's beautiful. Animals, especially cats, can sense when their humans are in distress. They respond to changes in breathing, heart rate, body language. Maya wasn't just randomly sitting on Rachel's chest during panic attacks. She was responding to Rachel's physiological distress, providing pressure therapy and grounding presence. The eye contact, the purring, these are actual therapeutic interventions. Maya was Rachel's emotional support animal before Rachel even realized that's what was happening. Rachel still has Maya, obviously. Maya is for now, still beautiful, still regal, still insists on sitting directly on whatever Rachel is trying to read or work on. Rachel's apartment is filled with cat furniture, cat toys, photos of Maya in various ridiculous positions. Her phone background is Maya sleeping in a sunbeam. She's become that person, the cat person, and she's never been happier about anything. Last year, Rachel adopted a second cat. A scrappy orange tabby from a shelter who'd been returned twice for being too energetic. Rachel named him Chaos, which is accurate. Maya was not thrilled at first, very offended that another cat dared enter her domain. But they've worked it out. Maya tolerates Chaos with the patience of a saint, and Chaos worships Maya like she's royalty. It's a good balance. Here's what kills me about Rachel's story. She spent years saving other people's lives. That was her job, her calling, her identity. But when she needed saving, she couldn't do it for herself. She needed something external. Something that didn't care that she was a highly skilled ER nurse, that didn't have expectations about her strength or resilience, that just needed her to show up in the smallest, most manageable ways. She needed Maya. We put so much pressure on helpers to help themselves. On healers to heal themselves. On people in caring professions to somehow be immune to trauma, to exhaustion, to breaking. But that's not how humans work. Sometimes the strongest people need the most support. Sometimes the people who spend their lives saving others need to be saved too. And sometimes that salvation comes from unexpected places. Like a Siamese cat delivered by a neighbor who barely speaks English but somehow knew exactly what Rachel needed. Rachel told me something at the end of our interview that I think about constantly. She said, "I used to think asking for help was weakness. I thought I had to be strong all the time, had to handle everything myself, had to save everyone including me. But Maya taught me that needing help isn't weakness, it's just being alive. We all need support. We all need someone who shows up for us when we can't show up for ourselves. And sometimes that someone has 4 legs and judges your life choices from the top of the refrigerator." So here's my question for you: who saved you when you couldn't save yourself? Was it a cat? A person? A moment? And if you're in healthcare, if you're one of those people who gives and gives until there's nothing left, please hear this: you're allowed to need help. You're allowed to step back. You're allowed to admit you're drowning. Your worth isn't measured by how much you can endure. You deserve care too. You deserve Maya too. Drop a comment and tell me your story. Tell me about the moment someone or something showed up when you needed it most. Tell me about your Maya. These stories create connections, and connections save lives. I believe that deeply. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already here, and if you know a healthcare worker, check on them. They are dealing with things most of us can't imagine, and they need to know they are not alone. Until next time, give your cat an extra treat, and remember, asking for help isn't giving up. It's choosing to survive. See you in the next one. Meow for now.